October 18th, 2018 meeting to order of the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. And could we?
Your mic's not on.
My mic's not on?
Yes.
Do you want me to call it to order again?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I think we got that.
All right, you gentlemen, get in order, okay?
We couldn't start without Dale anyway.
I couldn't start without Dale anyway. Okay, and with that, could we have the public announcement, please?
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. Copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby of this conference room. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representative to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please write your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the lobby. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please sign in on that same sheet. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available in the lobby. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to district court.
Okay, thank you. So we will move to agenda item number 1, approval of the prior MAPC meeting minutes, September 20th, 2018.
Second.
So I have a move to approve by Mr. McKay and a second by Mr. Green.
Need to
Mr.
abstain,
Hartman?
I was absent.
You need to abstain. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign. And then we have one abstention, Mr. Hartman. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 2, consideration of subdivision committee recommendations, and item number 2.1, sub 2018 00020, one-step final plat for Chapel Hill 3rd edition. Is there anybody on the commission that would like to hear that case?
Madam Chair, I have some staff comments.
Okay.
Comments to staff.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to hear that? Okay, seeing none.
Fine if it speeds things up. At the subdivision level, I do not recall getting a chance to look at the general provisions for the development guidelines. And so this came in our packet and had a chance to look at it. So if we look at general provision number 3, item C, it references the north facade building shall be prohibit overhead doors. I assume we don't need the word "be" in there.
A zoning item.
This actually has to do with the rezone case or the CUP case. The case before you is the plat.
I'll save these for that one.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're gonna take that item on consent. Agenda item 22, sub 2018 00022, final plat, Siler, third edition. Is there anybody on the commission that would like to hear that case? Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience that would like to hear that case? Seeing none, we'll take that on consent.
Move for approval of 20 and 22.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Joe Johnson, a second by Mr. Blick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Yes, sir.
Back to the minutes. Absent also, so I need to abstain. Sorry to be out of order.
Mr. Johnson, thank you. Okay, moving on, we have no vacation items, so public hearing. Case number ZON 2018 00039. We have to hear that case, don't we?
Deferred,
Yeah. So we will hear that case since that's deferred. Agenda item number 5, case number ZON 2018 00040. We will also hear that case. Agenda item number 6, CUP 2018 00039, City New CUP Chapel Hill CUP for future commercial development on property zone LC. Is there anybody in the,
Mr. Foster's questions.
oh. Is there anybody on the commission that would like to hear that case? I know you have questions, Mr. Foster. Is there any audience that would like to hear that case? That is CUP 2018. You can ask your questions.
Under provision number 3, item C, it reads, north facade of building shall be prohibit overhead doors. I assume that's to be shall prohibit overhead doors.
It's a typo.
And item 6, item D, it refers to light poles including above ground base shall be not be limited due to, is that shall be or shall not be limited?
Code limits them to 15 feet maximum height if they're located within a certain.
Yeah, and they're asking for a waiver of that adjacent to the church to be, so that they
it would
are
read
to be
shall.
as the same height. And that was language provided by the agent, could be typos,
So it would be shall not be limited.
correct?
On item 11, sign code of the city, let's see, no, I'm sorry, the next line down, shall be either monument of pylon type, I've seen.
Yeah, that should be or.
Okay. Then it references up above that Wichita and amendments thereto. Does that mean if someone has a new sign, that they would come under the amended regulations?
No, it means that the sign code is amended, that would apply.
Okay, as amended, okay. Then under item provision number 12, item B, access controls are shown and/or on the revised upon the CUP. How should that read?
Well, it just should say it's actually the plat that sets access controls. The plat you just approved earlier provided the same access controls. There was now new one opening along 13th Street on the plat, and the intent is for the CUP to match the plat.
I think it's a typo that we just strike the word upon.
Yeah, yeah.
That work? Okay. Then just one other one. Under item D, pedestrian connectivity to major arterial and with buildings on the CUP. Do we assume that's 13th? Or should it state to 13th?
Well, yeah, 13th is the only major arterial affected by this, because this is otherwise adjoining Chapel Hill, which is not an arterial, and it would not apply to K-96 highway.
Final question on the legal description. It refers to lots 1, 2, 3, and then on the face of the plat, it's referring to them as parcels. Is there a distinction there, a surveyor's terminology or anything?
CUP lots are parcels, platted lots are lots. So on the face of the CUP, no matter what it is, they are parcels, but on the lot, on a plat, they're the lots. So there's two distinct nomenclatures there.
Those were my thoughts on the provisions there. Just wanted to double check. Thank you.
Let me get that out of the way. I'll go ahead and move for approval.
So,
Consent, then, can't you?
yeah, we'll just take that on consent, if that's okay. Okay, agenda item number 7, case number ZON 2018-00042. Is there anybody on the commission that would like to hear that case? Seeing none, is there anybody from the audience that would like to hear that case? Okay, we'll take that on consent. Agenda item number 8, case number ZON 2018-00043, city zone change from LC limited commercial to general commercial. Is there any, yes, sir?
I'd like to hear.
You'd like
that.
to hear that case? Okay, we will hear that case. Oh, okay, and we need to hear case number 9.
You could do 10 and 11 as consent if you wanted.
Oh, I can do 10 and 11 as consent? Okay, case number DRE 2018-0003. Is there anybody on the commission that would like to hear that case? Meeting, so I don't need to ask that, so we can just take those on consent. Okay with taking 11 on consent too? And what about 12?
12 and 13 you need to hear.
Need to discuss 12? Okay.
And 14 too.
13. We need to discuss 13 as well. Okay.
I guess we could take 14 on consent if everybody's happy with that.
Okay, we'll take 14 on consent if everybody's okay with that as well. All right.
I'd move for approval of 6, 7, 10, 11, and 14.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Joe Johnson and a second by Mr. Blick. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Motion carries. All right, let's go back to agenda item number 4, ZON 2018-00039, and we will hear from Dave. You're out.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the request to rezone the property south of 47th Street, essentially east of Locklead Avenue. We are just to about a half-mile east of Seneca. It's on the south side of 47th Street. Request is to zone this from single-family to LI Limited Industrial. This was continued at the meeting on the 20th at the request of the applicant in order to provide language for a proposed protective overlay that has been provided, and in this case has also been reviewed by the District Advisory Board, who did recommend approval with the PO. That PO was added to your agenda packet and is outlined within that. Nothing has changed with respect to the overall intent. It is noted in the staff report that for future development to occur. It will require a plat. The platting will address issues of access along 47th Street. The agent is indicating the applicant intends to restrict access onto Lockleed, which is presently a gravel road. So there would not be any access proposed coming out of this property onto Lockleed. I'll kick on the aerial so you can kind of see what's going on. All the other provisions of the zoning regulations regarding screening and buffering and other issues adjacent to industrial or single-family lands from the industrial property would apply at such time when building permits come forward. So there would have to be buffering and screening and some other things would have to be done at such time as we actually see development on this property. So at that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions from the commission? Mr. Blick?
Dave, you actually answered all my questions I had written down, so I appreciate that.
Any other questions from the commission? If not, we'll have owner or applicant please step forward.
Good afternoon, Russ Avey, Boffman Company agent for the applicant. I think there was a pretty good overview, and we had some discussion about a month ago on this, on the 20th of September, and I'll just stand for any questions that you all may have.
Questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this case? Yeah, if you come to the podium, state your name and address. 2 minutes? Three? You have 3 minutes. Can't keep that 2 and 3 straight.
Good afternoon. My name is James Bishop. My address is 4696 South Gold Street. And I can show you with the, this is our property right here. I'm here today to express our opposition to the proposed zoning change. Our neighborhood's already bounded on the east by limited industrial zone properties, which is this area here. Currently, we welcome the improvements to the area, but adding more industrial businesses next to the residential properties, we feel most certainly will increase the noise, air, traffic pollution problems. Excuse me. Listening to generators run, smelling their exhaust, compressed air machines running at the adjacent properties to the east, and then also the one across 47th Street to the southeast. In addition to that, in the middle of the night, trash trucks loading and unloading in some of the warehouse space there directly east and a little south of our property. Those are issues we currently address or are dealing with, and we prefer not to increase those levels if possible. And another thing that kind of is troubling, the exiting the neighborhood now during peak times from Laclede onto 47th Street, that's a T intersection. That's very difficult currently. We can only imagine the increase that traffic flow will be created with any industrial there. Again, there's no, apparently no development plan that's been laid out for this property, but changing it from a SF5 to an LI, a light industrial, that's pretty close, and I'm not telling you folks anything you don't know, but that's going from one end of the spectrum in terms of being the most restrictive or nearly to the next to the least restrictive. So with no plan in place, we're very concerned as residents of what may go in there. Also, the existing zoning, excuse me, I have allergy problems this week, so please forgive me. The existing zoning allows several development opportunities currently, and that would help to infill the residential area as part of the long-term development plan for South Wichita. We believe there are several parcels in the 13 square miles of this overall development plans known as Crossgate that would be more suited for this type of a zoning change if there was some type of a business that would come in there all the way to the east on the south side of 47th Street all the way over to Broadway. I believe most, if not all, of that property is already zoned. There's some closer to the intersection of 47th and Broadway that has lots of concrete poured already, lots of possibilities, potentials there, other than taking this. We feel like this 10-hour, excuse me?
Sorry to interrupt. You're out of time. Would you like an additional 1 minute?
If I may, please.
Sure.
Okay. So we feel like that this is kind of going from one extreme to the other. We urge you to reject this zoning change request so as to avoid any additional negative impact. More LI zone developments would have more of a negative impact on the neighborhood. Also, I'd like to bring your attention, if I could, in your Wichita.gov, your zoning website. There's golden rules of a zone change request. There's 9 different points on there. Number 5, I'd like to point out, if I may indulge me to read this to you. Relative gain to the public health, safety, and welfare as compared to the loss in value or the hardship imposed upon the applicant. The protection of public health, safety, and welfare is the basis for zoning. The relationship between the property owner's right to use and obtain value from their property and the city's responsibilities to its citizens should be weighed. And I'll skip around. Also, number 3, it points out that the focus should be on facts, not fears or conjecture or, oh my God, the sky's falling. And we sincerely believe that this request to deny this change is coming from facts, not fears or anticipation. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? Can you stay at the podium for a moment, please?
Sure.
I have a question for you. I appreciate you for coming out, especially if you're a resident and you live in the area. Were you able to make the district advisory board meeting?
Yes, sir.
And you speak your opinion about that at that board?
In a less, in a less formal setting, yes, I did.
Okay, I was just wondering, because I know that the district advisory board had on there that they put that there would have to be a PO also, and so that's why I was just wondering if you were able to make that meeting also.
Yes, I was, and I do have a copy of the overlay that you're referring to, and there's about 5 or 6 items. Mr. Avey was good enough to provide that to me after the last zoning meeting. But if you look at the list of
Do
potential.
you agree with that PO?
I'm sorry?
Do you agree with that PO then?
Well, I believe it doesn't go far enough. We appreciate those restrictions that are on here, but if you look at the limited industrial zoning criteria, it's nearly 4 pages, 3.5 pages of possibilities. And when you read through those, it's pretty much it's an endless possibility. And I understand the opportunity for the developer, the landowner, to have the option of not having to go through the zoning process. But we feel like this is it's pretty excessive to take this. If you look at the overall, the aerial map, if you look farther to the south of this 10 acres, directly south of it, there's an open property there, vacant property, but then you go just south of that, and that's all residential area as well. With all of this development, the potential, the plans that are in the making here for the next several years in the Southwest District, we feel like that would be much more appropriate just to square that off and make that residential as opposed to coming off into there and turning it into a light industrial. Specifically light industrial, the first thing on the list says that there are no residential uses allowed in the property.
All right, thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Florence?
How long have you lived in that area?
Almost 30 years, about 30 years. Okay.
Other questions from the commission?
Yes.
Mr. Daly?
You made a statement that there's 13 square miles in this. Where are the other portions that make up that 13 square miles?
According to information, sir, that I'm aware of, the Crossgate Development Project basically goes from a little east of Broadway, follow 235 around to West Street, and then, to the Big Ditch, and then the Big Ditch all the way back around where it comes back around to Hayesville. So that was in one of the Wichita Journal, a Business Journal articles, and I'm sure there's several other places where that's quoted, but that's what I'm referring to. This is all part of that development project as we understand it. Did I answer your question?
Sort of, yeah, thank you.
Other questions from the commission? Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to speak on this case? If not, we will have agent or applicant come back up for rebuttal. And of course, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'll try to be brief. Again, Russ Avey, agent for the applicant. I just wanted to clarify that he's correct, Mr. Bishop's correct on the Crossgate addition in general. It's spread out in large chunks. I've been before you over the past couple of years getting quarter sections here, half section, or 80s here, and 40-acre parcels in other locations. In fact, other consulting firms have also done larger commercial projects within this giant umbrella that Mr. Lang calls Crossgate. So this, again, is just one small parcel within that larger development plan. I would just like to point out that this is, unlike the other projects, which are speculative for future industrial development, this one in particular is located adjacent to an existing Lang business enterprise to the east. Mr. Lang also owns the undeveloped residential property here that you can see to the south and further to the south. He also controls that and is looking at residential development in that area. So those were just points of clarification. I'll stand for any questions that you all may have.
Questions from the commission? Mr. Foster.
Russ, I'm curious, I'm going through the staff report again, and I'm trying to find reference to the additional information on a PO relative to the advisory board. Can you give us some of those items that might be considered
Sure.
here?
Following the September 20th Planning Commission meeting here, Mr. Bishop and I were able to discuss this in between cases, and I understood what it was, I understood his concerns, and I agreed with his concerns to a degree, so we felt like maybe the 20th was too premature to make a final decision, that we in fact could go back to the applicant and see if there was room to add a protective overlay. That overlay was drafted the next day and sent out to Mr. Bishop, and we presented that protective overlay at the District Advisory Board meeting. So there was no changes to the draft protective overlay that we came up with on September 21st or September 25th. And my staff packet has that as an addendum as the page, it's the second to last page in the staff report. That protective overlay dated the 25th of September has remained unchanged. Basically, to put it another way, the District Advisory Board agreed with that protective overlay in their 9-1 vote.
Okay, it sounded like there were more provisions. That's what threw me off there, but thanks for the clarification.
To be perfectly frank, we discussed at length at that meeting less the number of uses and more of the treatment of Laclede Avenue to the west. I had promised that we would do everything in our in what we were able to do when we plat the property to get complete access control and to leave Laclede alone. The pastor of the church, which is the property owner most directly affected, was encouraged by that, and I pointed out to him that that was a three-way partnership between us, what we propose, what the neighborhood expects, but also, when we get to the platting process, what the city is going to want to see happen with Laclede. So again, the one major issue would have been to add maybe complete access control to Laclede. That was never part of their motion. I think that's something that could probably best be served when we plat the property, or addressed rather.
Other questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
I will bring it back to the commission for action. Mr. Blick.
Based off the information from the District Advisory Board with the PO, their recommendation, that's the reason why we brought it back to them also, so the public input. And it's brought together the District Advisory Board with district representatives and neighborhoods. And I see that this is their best interest, especially with the PO and of the restrictions. I move to approve with the PO overlay.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Blick and a second by Mr. Dool. Other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay. So motion carries 11 to 1. All right. Moving on to agenda item number 5, ZON 2018-00040. And it looks like Dave will be presenting.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is the request to rezone the property. These two lots that are in the city of Greenwich as it's platted. It's not an incorporated city. We are on the north side of 53rd Street, approximately a quarter of a mile east of Greenwich Road. Request is to rezone from RR rural residential to limited commercial. You can see well, no, that is the zoning map. The zoning map shows the white is rural residential. The red outline here shows the current city limits of Bel Air. The only property that in the unincorporated part of the county that is not rural residential here is the lot that is at the far east end of Central Street in Greenwich on the north side of the railroad tracks that's zoned LI Limited Industrial. This case was continued from September 20th in order to give this the opportunity for the Bel Air Planning Commission to review this. They did do that a week ago on October 11th. And as noted in the staff report, the recommendation was on a 3-2 vote by the Bel Air Planning Commission to recommend denial. I think we also provided an attachment of a memo from the Bel Air staff of the Planning Commission's action and the rationale behind it. So this comes forward to you with a recommendation from Bel Air for denial. As noted in the staff report, and we talked about a month ago, we are recommending denial as well. The background regarding the improvement on this property was discussed and reviewed and discussed at the meeting last month. In the event the Planning Commission wishes to move forward with a recommendation of approval, we're recommending in that event that you add a protective overlay, and that is outlined in the staff report. I will note that two things have been modified from what you saw a month ago on that protective overlay. One is an acknowledgement that besides the limited vehicle repair, it also would allow an office use because according to what the applicant has indicated, the primary activity occurring on this property is the office for the business that he conducts as a subcontractor to provide trucks for FedEx and as well as limited vehicle repair activities on site. The other was a clarification to just add some little additional clarifying language regarding outdoor storage. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, we will bring up the agent or applicant. And you have you have 10 minutes.
Okay. Okay. Hey, thank you everyone for allowing me to come and discuss this matter before you again today. Not going to take a bunch of time and rehash everything. I think we kind of established what our business was and kind of what took place in the history of this building and over the last 2 years. So I just want to go into kind of the Bel Air meeting because I think that's what we tabled that and we wanted their city of influence. So we wanted their planning commission to hear this case.
Can you provide your name and address, please?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm Matt Fellows, 3151 North Den Hollow here in Wichita. Sorry about that. Okay, so we did have a very spirited discussion over 2 hours. It was a 2-hour discussion. It wasn't, we presented our case and then it was a 3-2 vote. It was a very spirited discussion amongst the planning members there. I think David could attest to that. I felt like it could have went either way. I feel like there was 2 people that were very strongly for passing this. I feel like one was very strongly opposed, obviously. Another one was on the fence, and what I think did us in, to be completely frank and honest with everybody and transparent, is the upkeep that we've had on this property for the last 6 months. We did not do a good job of keeping the property maintained since we were told that there was an issue with the zoning. So that is 100% on us, and I take personal responsibility for that. It's my business, or 50% my business. The biggest takeaway for me, though, from that meeting, we definitely need to be better neighbors as far as upkeep. I totally get that, and we have taken drastic steps in order to become better neighbors as far as upkeep. And we're planning on putting more capital in this if you guys were to approve this at this point in time. I feel like we've always been good neighbors as far as no noise violations, we're not doing heavy repair work. We actually allow neighbors to have horses come out on our property every once in a while. There's a guy in the area that takes parts off our cargo vans. So as far as part of being in the community and allowing others to come in and be neighborly, I feel like we do a good job at that. We obviously didn't do a very good job of the maintenance. So as of right now, if you're to drive out by there, there's absolutely 0 trucks, commercial vehicles on our lot at this time. Like I said, we've taken drastic actions since the rain stopped and we could get on there. We have 3 vehicles behind our 8-foot tall wood privacy fence right now. All those vehicles could be moved at a moment's notice. The 72-hour rule or whatever, we could definitely abide by that for sure. Everything's mowed. We have a rollaway actually scheduled to come out there today. There's metal around our building and stuff, shelves. We'll get all that stuff out of there. One thing also, big takeaway, everybody, even the folks, the neighbors that came to talk, they think 53rd Street needs paved in the worst way. We agree. We think one way, though, of getting that paved is allowing businesses in there, allow property taxes to get higher on our business. It was brought up that if we were determined to be commercial, our taxes would increase. Great. I feel like we should pay our fair share. Please tax us more if it is a commercial property. We've been operating it commercially for 2 years. If everyone would say, for back 2 years, we'll pay commercial taxes. We're totally good with all of those things. I feel like with additional tax revenue, that's when some of those additional services could be rendered for that community. Paved roads, that sort of thing. 53rd Street will be paved, though, at some point in time. East of Greenwich, 53rd Street for half a mile in the Bel Air planning maps right now. That's a major growth area for them, and they've actually, it's plotted as industrial directly across the street from our property. Industrial and then parking. So it is going to be paved. Whether we like it or not, the city of Greenwich, the commercial interest and the growth of Northeast Wichita is going into the city of Greenwich or close to the city of Greenwich. Definitely want to point out our hours of operations are basically 8 to 5. We don't operate early in the morning or late in the evening. There's not a hindrance or a nuisance to the neighborhood as far as when we are using our facility. Most of the neighbors at the hearings did mention that they do work 8 to 5, so minimal disruption in their lives. Most of the complaints or concerns that were arisen were based on the upkeep of the property, which again, take 100% responsibility for, and it won't happen again. I also want to point out the trucks. We don't provide trucks for FedEx. We actually are subcontractors for FedEx. All of our trucks are small. We have cargo vans or 12 to 16 foot box trucks. Everything weighs, except 3 of our trucks weigh less than 12,000 pounds. So when we talk about going down that gravel road on 53rd Street, a 4x4 truck would be heavier than most of our delivery vehicles. These aren't semis. These aren't 25, 26 foot straight trucks. These are cargo vans. So again, no noise disruption. We do use minimal usage of the infrastructure. Again, we talked about it a little bit last time, but we don't even use the minimum. We don't even use the minimum water ever in a given month. So I feel like our disruption to that neighborhood is less than a family of 4 or 5. I mean, we have 3 employees that are in that building each day. So I don't feel like we are a nuisance to the neighborhood or that our business and how we're conducting our business is affecting the folks in that neighborhood. Also want to point out again that several of the other home-based businesses or shops are currently operating, doing the same kind of work we're doing as far as providing services for cargo vans. Guy works on cargo vans, changes his own oil tires, is attested to at the last meeting that we talked about. One of which is zoned industrial. We talked about that a little bit too. So I'll wrap it up though. I won't take a bunch of you guys' time, but with the overlays in place, we really feel like we have an avenue to be a good compromise between our business and the unintended consequences of us misinterpreting the zoning and that sort of thing to begin with, and the homeowners in the area. I personally give my cell phone to the folks that were at the last commission hearing, that if something were to come up, they can call my personal cell at any time, day or night, make myself available to remedy any issues or circumstances that might come up. I haven't heard from anybody yet, but I do welcome those phone calls if there is anything that my business is doing to hinder or disrupt their daily lives. I do want to say, if you guys do deny this request, I respect your guys' decision 100%, obviously. But I do humbly ask that if there's any way that we could continue to operate the way we are until January of this 2019. The reason being, November and December are our two busiest months by far. Our volume doubles, our business doubles. At this point in time, all of our business processes, everything to do with our business, this is a major pivot or major point of our operations. And to pivot away this late in the game before our busy season would definitely cripple our business. Now, we could sell this property, and if you guys deny the request, which I hope you do not do, but in January, we could pivot away from this. It would still hurt our business, but if you deny it today and enforce it today, I am scared of what's going to happen to my business. So I do hope you take that into consideration. I don't know what avenues we could have if you guys do decide to deny, but if we could stay there through December, the first part of January, I would greatly appreciate that. And that's just a humble request. So thank you for your consideration. And is there any questions or anything I can answer?
Or Joe Johnson.
Is someone living here now?
No.
Don't plan for them to.
I don't plan for them to. There's such a gray area. It sounded like there's some confusion even in this commission hearing last time of the home-based use occupancy. I'm not one to go that route. I mean, if you guys tell me it's a no, then, you know, and obviously that's kind of the direction that you guys wanted to go. So we'll get out of there. I would ask for some time to get out of there. That's the only thing I would request if possible. And I'm okay with most of the protective overlays that are put in place. And I feel like it's a good compromise between us and the homeowners as well.
Mr. Daly.
Are you there every day?
I am not. No, sir. I am probably 3 times a week at some point in time during the week, yes. But
That's when you and 3 other people are there then.
3 of my employees are usually there. I have a regional manager, because I have 4 terminals in 3 states. I have a regional manager that sits there every day. I have the Wichita terminal manager that sits there every day. And there's my maintenance guy who, I mean, he can either be there or out on the road helping somebody if a truck breaks down or that sort of thing.
Mentioned that the trucks didn't come there,
Yes, sir.
but where do they go then if they don't come there?
So FedEx, a half a mile to the west of here, has a 170,000 square foot facility that we house our trucks at, we dispatch out of. They stay there overnight. What ends up happening is if a truck has brake job or light mechanical bulbs, that sort of thing, we'll drive it over to the shop and take care of it there. And like David said, mainly this is more of an office type play. So my guys go there and handle dispatch, my regional manager and then my senior manager, whatever you want to call it, sit in there and dispatch drivers, and we have it for storage as well. So we'll store oil, we'll store tires, we'll store uniforms, that sort of thing.
Other questions from the commission? Yes, Mr. Hartman.
So if you just have an office in there, why do you need the extra time to store the room?
All of all my uniforms and everything are there, but I would have to move all the office equipment and all the processes that we have in place, like W-4s, employees come on, direct deposit slips. My admins that sit there right now can go a half mile away over to the FedEx facility. FedEx has a very strict policies now on subcontracting because they're worried about dual employment liabilities and that sort of thing, because there's been a lot of court cases where people think FedEx is actually employing us versus subcontracting to us. So they don't let us do any admin type work at their facility. Basically, we load up our trucks and go out of their facility and park our trucks there.
Other questions from the commission? If not, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody from the audience that would like to speak on this case? Sir, if you would state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. However, I would like to ask that that your comments apply just to what's happened in the last couple of weeks since we've already heard this case.
Correct. My name's Jared Gouge. I live at 141 South Young, Greenwich, Kansas. In regards to the comments, I was at the last hearing here. I was also at Bel Air. I spoke my piece there as well. I'm back here to rebuttal some of this. Provisions have been taken to clean up a little bit as of 2 days ago. As of Monday, there were 6 FedEx vehicles still sitting on this property. The grass was still as tall as the fence. So they're doing this out of urgency because all eyes are on them. What happens 6 months, a year from now, when everything changes? All eyes are off of them. Is it going to go back to this way? I don't know. This is all done so unethically. This was all done under the radar, and we are here asking for forgiveness and not permission when this was done completely wrong from the get-go. So their whole process that they've done this has just been wrong, and if that's how they operate their business, is this how it's going to go moving forward? So that's all I've got today. I'm not going to rehash everything else that I've brought up. So that's all I've got. Any questions?
Any questions from the commission? Thank you. Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to speak on this case? If not, we'll give 2 minutes rebuttal.
I won't take the 2 minutes. The reason, and just to clarify, we did make a promise in that Bel Air Commission meeting that we would get the property cleaned up within 2 weeks. During that time, I did state that, the rain, it is a problem. It finally dried out enough and I have pictures on my phone. I mean, I made ruts when I was mowing and everything. I was personally out there mowing, last couple days. So we are taking steps to get it cleaned up. I'd recognize that we had not been a good neighbor, and I could see where there could be some hard feelings on that piece of it. Again, I've given out my personal cell phone number. If there's any concerns to the neighbors or anything, the property will be upkept. And especially if you guys do grant this, we plan on putting a significant amount of capital in to make the property look nicer. Right now we have a gravel driveway. I would love to put an asphalt driveway in. There's a lot of improvements that we'd make. So I just wanted to say that as well. Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll bring this back to the commission for action.
Madam Chair, I would like to make one point. This case, even though you're hearing it today, because of the action the Bel Air took, this will have to go to the Board of County Commissioners for final action. And so today's decision, one way or the other, will not be the end of the process. It's still got to go to the Board of County Commissioners, and that will not happen until the middle to latter part of November. So we're still a ways out before a final decision is taken.
Okay, thanks, Dave. And I saw,
I've got a question.
let me get Mr. Blick first, because I saw his hand first.
Do we have a representative for the city of Bel Air that's here today?
No, I do not believe we have anyone from Bel Air here. I think, did you guys get a copy of the memo from Bel Air?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
The question I just had, if we had a representative, is I see that their future vision map does show industrial to the south of that.
Correct.
And so that's the question I was gonna have is that gonna look like further even more east than what it is or not? But that's all right.
According to their vision plan, and that was discussed at the Bel Air Planning Commission, that they're showing industrial east of Greenwich going not quite a quarter of a mile further to the east. And then they've got, what they're envisioning is a park strip that would buffer the industrial that's east of Greenwich Road from envisioned residential further to the east. But as noted in the memo, they're talking about concerns about the gravel, the fact that 53rd is gravel, even though 53rd Street in this area is in the city of Bel Air. So they have responsibility for the road, even though they did comment, and some of the people there were unaware of it, but apparently they have a contractual agreement with the township for maintenance on 53rd Street in that area. But they pointed out repeatedly, they had no plans to improve 53rd Street anytime soon. In their capital program, they have many other streets that they want to see improved before we get this far east.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Mr. Dool, I saw your hand next.
Yes, it seems to me from what I've heard that the business that the applicant is applying for has been conducted in that building since it was constructed. And really the only reason that it's here today is that there are other property owners that want to see that the compliance with the current zoning laws are applied. And therefore, I would agree with the planning department's recommendation to deny.
Got a motion?
Yes.
Question.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Dool and a second by Mr. Kay, and I still have questions by Mr. Richardson and then Mr. Daly.
Dave and county councilors here about, just to be clear there, if this were to be approved, there's also a protest process as there is.
That's correct.
You might just explain that for the people in the audience, how that works.
Sure. I might defer some. I didn't know if Dale was going to comment on this, on what he has in mind on the protest.
Because protests are only effective after the planning commission has rendered a decision, there was a handout that was provided because we were provided protests from the county clerk. What we're hoping to do is catch somebody from the neighborhood and let them know that they can pick those protests up here, take them back over to the county clerk, and have them re-stamped so they would be effective. They are not effective at this point. We provided the map because one of the golden factors is neighborhood support or opposition. And since we had that information, we're providing it for you to use it however you want. But we are hoping to catch up with somebody to be able to explain that they need to pick up the packet that we've received from the clerk, take it back over and have it re-stamped if they intend to continue the protest.
Okay, so there have been some that just need to happen officially after this meeting, if you will.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah,
And
there's-
that requires then a supermajority vote? Is that
Yes.
4 out of 5?
And the same supermajority requirement is applicable because Bel Air has recommended denial. So
Okay.
irrespective going forward, when it goes to the Board of County Commissioners, it will take 4 or 5 commissioners to approve this.
Oh, I see. Okay, because of Bel Air's.
Yes.
All right, so in essence, they show up as a protester because they have recommended denial?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Daly, you still had a question?
If they move across the street, they'd be legal in what they're doing.
Now?
Now,
No, one, they would be in Bel Air, and in Bel Air, it's still zoned agricultural.
Apply for rezoning.
Might put the zoning map back up there.
Well,
Mr. Joe Johnson.
I'd like to make a substitute motion. I'd like to move for denial, but to give till January 15th to vacate.
I'd just back up what Dale said. That's a little bit outside of your jurisdiction as a planning commission. Ultimately, it would be up to MAPC staff to determine whether to prosecute or not. I'm sorry, I guess, okay.
But the way we handle complaints is
Mike.
sorry. All right, is that
Now you're in stereo.
if you recommend denial and the applicant decides to continue with the case, then it'll take another 30 days approximately to get to the Board of County Commissioners for them to render the final decision. There would be no enforcement action until that was taken care of. And then at that point, it would go through its normal enforcement action, which could take, a month or so or more to get completed anyway. So that's kind of the time frame. Yeah.
Withdraw.
Withdraw your motion. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any other discussion or questions?
I just want to make a comment. I agree with Mr. Dool on the, just the limited commercial.
Somebody loan Mr. Hartman a mic, please.
This would be the only limited commercial within the whole town of Greenwich, and due to the history of this property, I would recommend denial as well.
Mr. Florence.
I would concur because I know one thing, when you go through that process of getting a building permit, they don't make that mistake. They will put down what you say that what your intentions are. So.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries.
no, when this goes to the Board of County Commissioners.
Moving on to agenda item number 8, case number ZON 2018-00043, and Dave will be the presenter on this case.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is a request to rezone the property on the north side of Lincoln and on the west side of Ida. We're just a block east of Washington. The request is to rezone it from LC Limited Commercial to GC General Commercial. The primary reason is because the applicant's wishing to fully bring into compliance a vehicle repair general activity that's occurring on the property. According to MAPC staff, I guess they're technically a part of planning staff now, aren't they? DR's group is part of us now. There has been an issue primarily with the property at the 1145 South Ida address with business activity occurring on there. It resulted in complaints from the neighborhood, and they are conducting activity such that apparently it's some kind of a racing business that has had vehicle parts left outside and other issues. They've been cited and notified by and got a notice of NOV, as they call it, or notice of violation from the codes office. And that's what initiated the application request to rezone this property to GC. As you can see, immediately to the west is property that's all zoned GC. We've had discussions internally at staff and have recommended approval of the rezoning, fully recognizing that the screening and buffering requirements of the code would be fully applicable once they then got the building for recertified for the use that's occurring and got a CO for that activity. And part of that improvement would be to make, apparently, bring the buildings up to code compliance and also get all the other standards of the regulations and codes the city brought into play. We feel that's the best way in which to deal with the impacts of this business activity as it continues to evolve in this part of the city from residential to more commercial uses. I've got some aerial photos. This is looking at this is the house on North Ida, right north of the property in question. You can see the fence here, and I think that probably the next, yeah, this is the property in question. This is the 1145 South Ida address, and you can see the area that's north of it, some of the vehicles that are parked out here, and they've got a fence right now along this location. What I just showed you earlier was the property. There's the fence and the house on Ida. This is the property I'm looking north from. This is Lincoln in front of us. This is the building at 1020 South or East Lincoln. You can see the application sign on the fence, and this is the back side of these buildings that are over on Ida, and you can see the vehicles parked out in here. This is taken looking kind of southwest of the site. This is the building on Ida. Here's the corner one at 1020 East Lincoln. There's the property on Lincoln in the corner. This is looking north from Lincoln along Ida. So you can see this is the building in question, and here's the condition of Ida Street. That's looking south on Ida across Lincoln, and what's further to the south. This is directly east across the street from the property, and you can see the single-family residences along that area. That's looking southeast. I'm at the corner of Ida and Lincoln, looking southeast with the commercial development that's along Lincoln Avenue. That's looking east along Lincoln. That's looking west. And this is the property. This is on GC, just across it. Here's the alley, and this is all the GC activity. There is a car repair business, general vehicle repair general at this location, according to MAPC or the codes office. They've got apparently a violation issue going on there right now. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none. agent or applicant, if you could please come forward. You have, please state your name and address, and you have 10 minutes.
Afternoon, everybody. My name is Nali. My address is 1224 South Hart Street, Court. Yes, I could like to get this to limited commercial to general commercial because I have a tenant there with we're doing body work right now. Because I didn't know when I bought the property, the appraisal, tax appraisal, they say body works, so I put them in there unless on one day the inspection they come, they say this limited commercial can be used for general commercial. I think that's all I have.
That's all?
Yes.
Okay, any questions from the commission? Mr. Blick?
Do you have outdoor storage right now that you're doing? Do you have cars parked outside?
Yeah, they do have car park outside because I think my attendant there, he worked for a dealer, so every time they bring some car in and they get it out, they just do the body work. And
So probably more than 72 hours?
I didn't know that.
Don't know?
Yeah,
Okay.
so probably, I think so. I think more than 72 hours.
Other questions for the commission? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody from the audience that would like to speak on this case? Okay, then I will bring it back to the commission for action.
And move for approval with staff recommendations.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Johnson, Joe Johnson, second by Mr. Green. All in favor say, I'm sorry, other discussion?
Dave?
Yes, sir.
You give a little bit more description of the nature of the complaints?
Well, in talking with Tina from the codes office, she's indicating that the neighbors had complained previously regarding vehicle parts and other material left outside, storage of vehicles outside, some other issues of that nature, which is not permitted in the LC district. That was the notification basis that was given to the landowner. And I think, and Tina indicated that she quickly got in talking with the owner that it was really the tenant that was doing all this. The owner was unaware of it. And she did share that there were issues going on between the tenant and the owner, and I'm not sure where that is, and we don't want to be in the middle of that. But that was the basis of the complaints that were coming in. And that's what started the contact initially by her on the property. And as I understood, most of the activity was occurring in the 1145 South Ida property, but the owner has all the property, including the one down on Lincoln. And in order to rectify the business activity that's occurring, he has been notified by Tina that if this all is approved and the desire is to continue with that occupancy of the building, it will have to be brought up to code. She says there's also some issues because there had been paint and body work, so there will need to be some modifications to the building to meet the code requirements for that activity. There's also the requirements to take care of, if there is outdoor storage, they have to comply with the paving requirements and other issues that'll have to be done.
About screening relative, I'm thinking on that east side there for the existing residences, is that going to the general commercial? Is that going to upgrade that?
Yes, because this is residential across the street. Scott, you might help me on that. Well, it's LC across the street, so it wouldn't fully bring it in. It's primarily on the north side where you're going to run into that issue. Because the property to the east, including those single-family homes, are currently zoned LC.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion?
The comment that, I went by and looked at it, and it's clean. Look like he's trying to do
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. 12-0. All right. Moving on to agenda item number 9, case number DER 2018-00011, and Dale is going to introduce this case.
As you all remember, we had the home base addition and the smaller homes question that came up as a zoning change about a month ago. And so we had a request, Mr. Hamaker, he's here, and so he's got a presentation to make and a request to ask the council or the commission to consider. And so I'll turn it over to Mr. Hamaker.
Hello, everybody. My name is Russell Hamker. Address is 2206 South Ironstone Street in Sierra Hills neighborhood off of 143rd and Pawnee. This presentation here is quite a few different amendment requests pertaining both to tiny homes and also general MAPC business practices as well. So I'm going to kind of go over a couple of different things here and look for your all's comment. I also have one of my neighbors here, Ryan. I'd also like to have him up here as well, if that's okay. Would that be acceptable?
That'll be fine.
Ryan, you want to come on up? The first amendment we'd like to push for is a 40% rule. Basically, new single-family home builds within 1,000 feet of an existing single-family home should not be less than 40% of the existing single-family home size. So in layman's terms, basically, if you already have a pre-existing home of 2,000 square feet, the smallest home that can be built within 1,000 feet of your property is 1,200 square feet. This protects the current homeowners that already have property, protects the property values of the area, ensures that similar homes are built in the area, and protects the building two small homes close to other existing homes already. Our biggest concern about tiny homes is our property values, and this is to really take things home here to really help protect ourselves in the future. One other thing that we've found is the MAPC doesn't really have any way of fighting it from a public standpoint, and we'd like to have an amendment put in that 250 signatures for any ruling made by the Wichita MAPC be vetoed or overridden by for the public within 30 days of an MAPC ruling. This protects the public. It ensures the public has the final say versus the MAPC. It also prevents the MAPC from full autonomy. Signatures should be allowed, though, electronically or handwritten. I know from the tiny homes point of view, we've already collected a large amount of signatures, and I'm going to tell you from my own neighborhood, I can't get a signature from anybody to try to make an amendment change for my own neighborhood. But for this tiny home thing, I have had every single person in 5 different neighborhoods all jump on board. They all are very against this, and the MAPC has pushed this through. So again, an amendment for protecting the public is needed, in my opinion. I appreciate Dale again. Thank you for doing the assessment for us for tiny homes. One of the things that was talked about was mail notices, and we'd like to see that changed for all city annexations. All be required for that. Platting changes for single-family homes in general should be, and also any other single-family zoning changes. And again, it protects the homeowner is what it comes down to, and allows public notice as well. There's quite a few other cities in the area that do this already, in the state of Kansas and otherwise, and like to have that put in as well for our city. Public hearing. So all annexations must include a public hearing. This allows for public voice concerns again, ensures the MAPC does what is best interest of the public, and protects from building homes too small close to existing homes. The other big thing is, and while we already believe that the zoning ordinance states this, annexation for anything for SF20 is the example here, should not automatically be converted to SF5. We believe that rezoning must be handled separately from for public hearings, and then this allows for the golden rules. This also allows for just in general changes to be heard by the public. Again, information is a big deal for us as well, just to be heard about things. So Dale did another nice thing as well in regards to the tiny homes. They looked at the square footage requirements across many different cities in the Kansas area. And two of the larger cities, Overland Park and Kansas City, both have a requirement of 864 square feet as the minimum size for a new home build, single home specifically. We'd like to move that square footage be changed for single-family homes to be 864 square feet. This also ensures, same quality and expectations are met for our public constituents. It also has, for us, Kansas and Wichita, we have a lot of room to grow. Square footage just should not be a big deal. Then I also have quite a few tiny home-specific zoning requirements, as you guys can read here. One of the biggest ones for me was a fence around the area. One of our frustrations was there's going to be a very large amount of people in a very small area, and we wanted to see that if tiny homes are put in somewhere, even if they're not put in my backyard, they're put somewhere else, that there's a fence that puts up to help protect the other public from themselves. I don't know how to describe that. One of the other issues that was talked about as well with this is road size. So road sizes are a little unique in this scenario because unfortunately tiny homes, most of them don't have parking or garages or driveways or anything like that. They park everybody in the road. And Dale's saying no to that there. And that was one of our frustration points there as well. Tornado shelter should be required, just another general thing, including for all their parks as well. Some other people brought up some stuff about animal requirements. So I know this is not usually MAPC concern, but with having a large amount of people in a smaller square footage area, there's large concerns for people having large animals and having more than the regular amount. So consideration should be made for that as well. One of the other things for tiny homes as well, that was put away or agreed to was they have some one-way streets that were agreed upon, and again, there's some traffic problems with that as well, along with parking. And then for me personally, I have children at Christopher McCullough Academy. I would prefer them not to have these tiny homes close to a school, and primarily the whole use case is large amount of traffic. With that, other than that, I didn't put this on the bullet points here, but I believe tiny homes should also have a lot of similarities for zoning requirements as a mobile home park. I know it is not a mobile home park. It is a fixed structure, but many things carry over to it as well, just because of the amount of people, the small size of everything as well. With that, I'm opening things up for questions.
Joe Johnson.
Would you explain to me how MAPC pushed this through? You made the statement that we pushed it through.
I did actually, yes. So there was no public knowledge of this information at all, and
pushing it through implies we did something wrong.
I apologize. I would say not wrong. I would say the public was not made aware of it.
Okay. There's a distinction, right?
I'll say where we feel it's wrong is you used existing.
Sir, could you provide your
Sure.
name and address, please?
Sure. My name is Ryan Schweizer. I'm on 2002 South Ironstone in the Sierra Hills development as well. My house is located about 600 feet from where the proposed, maybe 700 feet from the proposed building. I don't know if pushed it through is the correct way to put it, but we've used existing rules that do not contemplate the concept to govern our decisions or base our decisions off of. There should have been time out hit at some place when a subdivision of this nature, Dale's been doing this 30 years. He's never once seen anything like this come across his desk. It doesn't exist here. So to use the rules that we have in place that were created for concepts other than this, that this concept didn't exist when that was happening. So we think there definitely needs to be some change rules. And this is not an exhaustive list. We don't write policy for a living. We don't write commission or zoning regulations for a living. But we're feeling the effects of the decisions that have been made here and the city council by using the rules that are in place. And frankly, we're very tired of it just being accepted. You know, Dale has a big one that he goes to that, well, they could build bigger houses. Everyone knows that they're not building bigger houses. That's not the intent. Pete wouldn't be forwarding renderings of these ahead of a vote if that was a possibility. It was crystal clear what was to be built. And I think we should have had rules in place to govern that, and if we don't, we should have taken a timeout, had these conversations before this is approved.
Other questions for the commission? Mr. Richardson?
Let's go back to the original slide on signatures if we could.
Sure.
It's not clear to me about 250 signatures within what sort of distance here? Like if I live on the west side, I could come up with 250 signatures to oppose
That's
this?
up for discussion right there. That's why we came up here to talk to you guys. Now,
A little bit there. So in our neighborhood, I believe there's 170 homes, 180 homes?
180.
180. Taking equestrian estates, there's probably another 130 there. And then Cambria across the street, there's probably 35 or 40 developments, plus various other neighborhoods around there. That was a number based on, you know, you get all of one neighborhood. We essentially have every resident, there's a couple that we don't have, but out of 180, we probably have 175 residents in our neighborhood that have signed a petition. So again, it's not a number that's specific to anything. It's just an idea. It's to show that if you have a certain number of people, the vast majority immediately surrounding this that are opposed to it, we should probably take a time out and listen to those concerns. So
Well,
what the number is, we don't know.
Sure, what you're saying is not timeout. You're saying it would have an absolute veto, which I think will be a little hard to do with elected commissioners, both at the county and the city. I don't see how that would work.
Commissioner Richardson, to your point on that, it would actually require a whole host of legislative changes. It wouldn't be anything that could be done here with our code.
Okay, all right. I was just trying to understand how that would work. I didn't see any, you know, from what you have on the board, if I'm 5 miles away and I get 250 signatures at Town East, that would override what we do, what city council does, what the county commission does. I think that's probably not a reasonable issue. What I heard you saying was you wanted some sort of notice. What I didn't hear you say is how far away should that notice be? I mean,
It did. It was thousands.
no, so no notice for, million notice specifically was 1,000 feet. So I'm actually outside of that 1,000 feet myself, just barely. But I think at least that would cover a large amount of people in Cambria and some of Sierra Hills as well.
Yeah, in this particular case, I think it's 250 had it gone through how we think the zoning changes should have gone.
And so by notice, what are you attempting to have here? Just the ability to be heard? Do you want that to be subject to protest petitions as the way it works now? What's your objective here?
Similar to that, yes.
Well, similar, what does that mean?
I would say all of the above.
Yeah, that did not happen in this case because of the.
I understand why it didn't happen. I'm just asking what you want, what you're asking for. And as I understand it, in Counselor, we got two people here, two attorneys. You know, is that possible to have that happen without changes? Who has to make the changes for that notice provision to happen on either one of these, either plating or annexation?
Well, there are minimum requirements under the statutes for zone changes. There are not any statutory requirements for plats and annexations about notice requirements. So those are things that you could certainly change your local code to do that and provide supplemental notice on those items. You could always provide more notice or notice where the statutes don't provide for it.
And so this would have to come from either the city council or the county commission or both?
That's correct.
Mr. Blick?
Go back to the 40% slide.
Yeah, sure.
This one kind of disturbs me because if you say 40% reduction, what about 40% increase?
Increase is fine because our property values are not going to be affected in a bad way. So if I have a home that's 2,000 square feet and someone decides to build a house that's 6,000 square feet next to me, hey, that's great. That means that.
But I don't want the 40%. Because I live in a house that's 900 to 1,000 square foot,
okay.
And you have a new housing addition that's building all these new homes that are 1,200 to 2,000 square foot. So now there's another side of the spectrum constitutionally that would say, because if you're gonna go and say that somebody is income-based, can only afford a certain house, but then somebody else can't, then how is this justified? A 40% rule, you're restricting somebody that is based off of, if they can only afford a house that's like a tiny home. But then you got somebody else in town that can afford a 2,000 square foot home.
So the tiny homes, I'm going to just interject, that are the same cost as a 2,000 square foot house. So cost is not the problem there.
Some of them, that's
Some of
very
them it is.
$100,000 buys a lot of houses.
We have fill-in homes in the core area of downtown Wichita. We have fill-in homes that they'll spend $100,000 or whatever. But then at the same time, they're bigger homes than a house right beside, so they really stick out. So, we have an infill thing that we have, that the city's doing also. But when you're talking about subdivision-wise, and you want to put restrictions on subdivisions based off of square footage of a home, I see that there's a whole nother spectrum also if you go too big.
Well, and that could be put in. I mean, we could say X percentage too large. I'm fine with that too,
But
but,
that's just crazy based off somebody's income. Constitutionally, I just don't see how.
well, this isn't based on income here. This is just about, this is what my property value is. It's nothing to do with my income. I mean,
Just wonder.
my income, I could
Johnson.
own a 2,000 square foot home and a 5,000 square foot home at the same time.
Mr. Joe Johnson.
Dale, could you remind me, did the city and county change the building code in order to allow for these?
Well, they adopted Appendix Q, which in the building code, which for the first time provided guidelines in terms of construction of smaller homes, in terms of emergency ingress and egress, and they gave a definition for what is considered to be a tiny home based on square footage. There is no minimum, it was a maximum. And both the city and the county adopted the building code that contains Appendix Q.
Had they not done that, then it wouldn't have been allowed to be built.
No, as long as it was being built to the building code, yeah, they can build any size that complies with the zoning envelope, side yard setback and maximum height. And you can go as small as you can go. I mean, as I think I mentioned before, the way the building code is set up, you could theoretically build a house somewhere between 150 square feet and 200 square feet and have a legal home with the building code.
I don't think the size of the home has anything to do with the beauty of the home, so.
Yes.
I mean, you can have an ugly 4,000 square foot home too.
Mr. Richardson.
So, just to be clear, Dale,
Yeah, that-
they did establish a definition, but that does not change the minimum size of a home that can be built.
No, all, by definition, what was adopted is that a tiny home that is eligible for the building code standards is a home that is smaller, 500 square feet or smaller.
And are those somewhat different than houses bigger than 500 square feet? Or is that pretty much the same?
Well, I'm not an expert on it, but what I remember was it was allowed for things like you could actually exit through your roof and count that as an emergency exit, which a larger home presumably would have 2 doors.
Answer my question.
Other questions from the commission? Oh, thank you. So is there anybody in the audience that would like to present or speak on this case? Okay, if you would step up to the podium, provide your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Renata Hager, and the address is 1657 South Willow Oak Street, which is just south of Harry. They have planned this tiny home project there, and tiny homes are fine. I have nothing against them. But where they place them, that is the big question here. You have an area of beautiful homes, proper lots, and then you're going to put a cluster of 900 to 1,000 miniature homes there. it will look like a sore thumb in the whole neighborhood. This town, Wichita, is growing for the future. And if anybody wants to develop any more in this town and looks at that sore spot, the blemish within an area of nice family homes, it will look awful. And besides, this area, by the time it's fenced in, it may get a nasty nickname. If you want to ask me, ask me. Otherwise, I will not say it. But you all can imagine. So, the other thing is, in the area where I live, that is designed to have the many tiny homes, there is an L-shaped wooded area that is, as of right now, a wildlife sanctuary, according to the Sedgwick County inspector. And if that is all plowed under, which also that area carries a natural drainage for the heavy rainwater that comes down the field. You guys just didn't plan ahead. You just looked at the paper and said, ooh, that's good. You're going to have another 1,000 homes you can tax, 1,000 homes that can be sold for $200 a square foot. Gee, I can buy a house downtown for half the price, and that carries the value. And within years, when people move in, it looks great, small mansion, couple years down the road, they get tired of it. And what is then? Besides, they already mentioned, it's going to go for rental. With rental, you're going to get low income. You're going to get homeless. You're going to get Section 8? Thank you, sir. My backyard borders that area. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any questions from the commission?
Question.
Mr. Johnson?
What are we? No. What are we? What is our agenda today for this?
They are here making their proposal, asking you if you are willing to direct staff to do further research and prepare a recommendation on whether these types of amendments should be included in our various codes.
Go to the city council then for approval, or?
We would run it through the normal process, through Plan Commission and the governing bodies, if you so direct.
Thank you.
Mr. Bill Johnson?
But I guess for us to make a decision, we got one side that's talking. We don't have the other side with other information, so we get to make a decision on just, most of this is 20/20 hindsight, but
Staff certainly will answer any questions you have about their proposal. We didn't get this in advance, so we're seeing it as you see it.
and we didn't either, and that's what concerns me.
So, I mean,
Yeah, that concerns me as well.
I don't know if it's accomplishing anything listening to this, in my opinion.
Mr. Foster?
Kind of following up what Dale, that we do need some help from staff here. I just made some bullet points as the discussion has gone on, and the first one is, when this plat was looked at the subdivision level, I think it's important to note that there was no discussion of square footage. That was not within our purview. There was only square foot issue for the lot size. So when this was reviewed at subdivision, I want to make sure the PC knows, the full body knows, that the size, square footage of the houses going there was never brought up. Now, this is a staff question. On the annexation item, I'm curious, dating back to maybe 1946, my understanding is that when something comes into a city, that it retains its zoning until acted upon to change it, but I want to understand back in 1946 how that came about, that the single SF5 would automatically go into effect.
well, part of the issue is that we've only had the joint zoning code that covers both the city and the county, the same code since 1996. Back in 1946, there was a city code, there was a county code. I quit looking earlier than 1946, but at that point, they have the same language or almost identically the same language that we have now, that annexed property that is brought into the city is converted to, and I think back then it was AA was the designation, but it's essentially today's SF5, that when it's annexed, it's automatically converted. And that's been the practice since at least 1946. It may be earlier. Because it is a requested annexation, there is no requirement in state law to send notices.
And another item is, I noticed in the memorandum, more so the communities are providing notice on this issue. What are your thoughts on, should more notice be provided, in other words?
I really think that's a policy decision by the Planning Commission and the governing body.
Did you get a sense at the governing body level, is the focus on the square footage of the houses?
Refrain from asking anybody to answer that. That would be something that the city council would have to dictate what they meant when they ruled, rather than somebody trying to interpret it. I would remind everybody there's active litigation in this, and so I'm not, we're not going to speculate. We're not going to guess at something unless, just.
Final question would be, or would be, Dale, if you could just give us the bullet points on where the code stands now, on the tiny homes in terms of there's no square footage issue except from what we learned from the building code now. And then that are they being treated as recreational vehicles? Was that our latest info?
Only if they stay on wheels or on trailers. If they're site built, put on a permanent foundation, they are treated just like any other site built home, and they are have to follow the zoning regulations. In the zoning code, there is no minimum house size. There are minimum lot sizes, lot area that they have to comply with, but nothing about house size or house value is in the zoning code or the subdivision regulations.
I'll just put in my 2 cents on, thanks for putting this together. It really helped bring the info together.
I'd like to ask the question, should we really even be hearing this? Because if there is litigation going on, why would we want to give input?
Well, there should be two clear distinctions between whatever happened with home base addition and that activity. That is a completely different thing than what is being asked here today. What they're asking you here today is, based on whatever happened there, are our codes deficient from the neighborhood perspective? And if you think so, then you would direct staff to look into making revisions. If you think our current codes are adequate and don't need further addressing, then you would tell us to not do any more work. That's really this is a very narrow thing today, is just whether or not you're going to direct us to review our codes with respect to the items they provided, irrespective of whatever happened with home-based addition and quote-unquote tiny homes.
Mr. Richardson.
Let me see if I can summarize here. We've got really three main issues to talk about. One is notice with regards to platting, whether or not anybody should be given notice in terms of mailed notice, surrounding notice on platting. And as a member of the subdivision committee, the size of housing does not come up in the platting. That's not even, it's not discussed. We wouldn't have this discussion if the proposed tiny home builders had not been in the press for the last year and a half. Number two is, do we want to provide notice on annexation? Those are really two separate issues. The last one is, do we want to have in the city of Wichita or in the county or both a minimum square footage of housing? And I'm not sure that that last one is the purview of the planning commission. Could somebody weigh in on that? Is that really, because it's now covered in the building code, which we don't deal with here, is that even something that we have anything to say about?
Well, I've been given conflicting opinions. I've had one person tell me that there's a state law that says that you can't do that. I've had other people tell me they can't find it. We haven't really done a lot of research on that. Based on the survey, clearly 3 or 4 communities think they can do it with either their zoning code or their subdivision regulations, and so they have done that. And so
Yeah, okay, so that piece of it is questionable as to how you go about it. That would have to take a lot of further research, should we want to go down that direction. Could be that we don't even have a way to weigh in on that, which kind of brings us back to the annexation or the platting. And again, I'll come back to who has the say on annexation. I don't think it's the planning commission. We don't deal with annexation, we deal with platting. So that issue would have to be taken up with the city and or the county. Is that right? So that's not the place to talk about that. So we're really down to notice on plats. And when we have plats, we talk about the size of the lots, we talk about access, we talk about streets. We do not talk about, and nor do we require it for the owners requesting a plat to disclose at that time what they're going to build, because frankly, they may not know what they're going to build at that point in time. And it changes from time to time. Could be the home-based addition ends up not being tiny homes. Could be an addition that gets platted closer to these people. Nobody says anything, and they end up being tiny homes because they can be built on any size lot. So, we're really down to, is notice required for plats, in my opinion, for this group to act on.
Okay, any other questions from the commission at this time? Yes, Mr. Green.
I would almost be in favor of tabling the discussion on anything that has to do with this item until after the litigation piece has been resolved on the home-based addition. Keeping in mind that I know that this discussion had everything to do with home base, but any decisions that we do make could wind up going back and affecting the home base lawsuit in the sense that, well, we have seen supposed errors in our way and we're trying to correct those now, and then that could go back and be used against the city in that lawsuit. So I would prefer just tabling this until.
Second.
That a motion? So I have a motion by Mr. Green to table this and a second by Mr. Johnson. Other discussion, Mr. Blick.
Somebody else in the public that was wanting to speak, but I didn't know if it.
2 other people.
Okay,
I have no problem with letting them go ahead and speak.
okay, thank you. You okay with that, Mr. Green?
That's fine. Just knowing that we're not going to make a decision on anything.
It's fine. You have 3 minutes if you'll state your name and address.
My name's Jerry Mayhew. I live at 13204 East Stampede, which is in Equestrian Estates. First off, the gentleman here in the red shirt, he's talked about a couple things to do with wells. Different places said, no, you can't do that. Other places, well, yeah, you can. So it kind of looks like to me we're putting the cart in front of the horse on this. Besides that, I do think it would have only been fair that we were notified about this, considering what our homes are. You got Cambria on one side, and they just about throw a stone over there to these small homes, and a lot of those homes, $650,000. People worked hard to get that money and build a nice home in an area where they thought everybody would have a nice home. Nobody's against tiny home projects because they need to be done. But on the other side of it, you mentioned that a person could, what was it, 175 square feet could actually build one of those if they wanted? Or,
For the building code, they
okay,
certainly could.
Thank you for that. Because I'd like to know where you're going to put your furniture in that. Where are you going to put your furniture in there? You going to sleep on just a couch or something with a couple dogs or your wife or kids, or you got no driveway, nothing else? And I appreciate you not shaking your head while I'm talking, please. That to me, you're just not thinking, guys. I don't know how many people in here ever come up poor. I did. I moved to this city, moved into something like this, got out of it as fast as I could. But it was a start, but they can go downhill really, really fast. And that's what our concerns are in Sierra Hills and all the surrounding neighborhoods, is about how fast this will go downhill, and everybody up here could care less. Hey, we're just trying to do the right thing for poor people. But how about considering doing the right thing for everybody that's moved there and done the right thing and paid the price to have a really, really nice neighborhood? These homes should be built somewhere, but I'm just not sure. Well, I am sure. And besides that, when the notice was given to us at the city council meeting about the sign that was up out there, I went out there and looked, and this sign was just a little old $3 deal that had slid down and was behind the weeds. Now, that kind of smelled bad to me. If you're that proud building those kind of homes in there for these poor people, you'd think you could at least put it up on a fence post or something rather than hide it, because that's what it looked like they were doing. They were hiding it.
Sir, your time is up. Would you like an additional 1 minute?
No, I'm fine. I think you're ready for me to quit.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you for your
Any
time.
questions from the commission? Nope, not at this time. Thank you. We have others. Okay, if you'll step to the podium and provide your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
My name's Frank Hager. I live at 1657 South Willow Oak Street, right off of Harry and 147th. My concern is simple. Why? I have a house that I paid for. I'm living there. I'm retired there. We didn't know anything about somebody digging up a piece of farmland back there and putting future ghetto. And that's exactly what they'll be. I just came back from Denver on Saturday night and saw one of these little tiny communities. They turned it over to the homeless. I hope you all enjoy what you're doing to us. The main issue right now is simple. Why weren't we notified? It's affecting everybody that lives around that field, and that's all it is. Does the school know about what they're doing? Did they know about that? I'm sure they would have screamed bloody murder about it. That's all I got to say. You might want to think about, you need to notify somebody, whether the city, the county, or whoever else shuffles this stuff around. There's people who live around it and are concerned. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Mr. Richardson?
Just so we're clear, had notice been mailed, you would have gotten a notice that said two things. One, it's going to be annexed. Number two, it's going to be platted. There would have been no notice about the size of the homes. Do you understand that?
That would not have mattered, sir. The whole point was, it's a big field out there, and people are selling them, and they're building homes all over the place.
Well,
You
but-
drive by anywhere you want down there, and there's some kind of home area being knocked up. The point was, though, is we knew about it after the fact, and we got no notice from anybody that had been transferred from the county to the city until we found out all of a sudden they're going to put this. You know where was that? In the newspaper. And I don't read the newspaper because I don't read it. It's trash. They all lie now. So, any other questions?
Questions from the commission? Thank you. Anybody else from the audience? Yes, sir. If you'll step to the podium. State your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, their name is Jim Groff, 1742 South Triple Crown Street. What's been kind of interesting and neat at the same time today in this meeting, I've heard 2020 hindsight. I think that's a great term. I've heard legal action. That's an ugly term, but it's a term, and it just seems like with the various comments that have been said, the various neighbors that have reiterated what had been said after the fact again, us hearing about this in the rears after gavels have been dropped, approvals have been made. This idea here of really the reason of us even talking is for something of the future to really help from stuff like this happening again. Number one. Number two, it also, since we're again, those terms 2020 hindsight, legal action, something like this, it's not too late. There's not been a weed, a piece of dirt, anything turned over, that this, to me, should go back to the commissioners, council, whoever, and say, you know, nothing wrong because everybody voted, as many things happen with everybody voting yay instead of 1 or 2 nay or majority nay. It just seems like it's not too late to make something right of something that has been done wrong. And a lot of people, 603 signatures and so forth in a surrounding area to it, has made comment. That basically all I have to say.
Any questions from the commission? If not, thank you. Is there anybody else from the audience who would like to speak on this case? All right, so I'm going to bring. Okay. You'll state your name and address.
Yes, my name's
And
Gary
you have 3
Stephen.
minutes.
I live at 14208 East Boston, and I'm a licensed realtor in the state of Kansas. And this is really affecting the east side in this area's real estate. There's a house on Willow Oak that's been on the market for a month, and the realtor called me and says, we haven't had one showing on that house because it backs right up to the tiny homes. I have a house across the street from me on Wooddale that's been on the market for 30 days. She priced it at $189.9. It's down to $174.9. So I've worked with customers, and I tried to bring them over to the east side because I like the east side. And they go, this is where the tiny homes is going to be built. And I said, yeah, but we don't know what's going on right now. They go, no, let's hold off for a while. So I understand why we build a beautiful southeast school. We got the elementary school there that's rated #1. And with the appraisers, the way they go by is they go by the area when they appraise homes. So like the people live in Cambridge area, got $1 million homes, and you're going to build these tiny homes. Appraisers going to have confusions on that. So it's bringing up a lot of real estate issues for you guys, for us. And I really wish you guys consider what you're doing to the east side of this town. I'm not against tiny homes. They should be like WSU area where students can go to college and live in these things. So please consider the real estate aspect because it's really affecting us. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any questions from the commission? Anybody else from the audience that wants to speak on this case? Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the commission. We already have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any other discussion?
I'd just like to say, I mean, I feel for these people, but I don't know. I mean, they're asking us to do something we can't do.
Right.
Court rules a certain way, maybe that will solve their problem. So
Thank you.
Stay with the second of the motion.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries 12-0. Oh, it's 11-0, sorry. All right. We are moving on to agenda item number 12. Is that correct? DER 2018-00013. And Mary's here to present.
12, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Mary Hunt, Planning Department. I have before you, we've had a request to conduct a South Central Neighborhood Plan, and we're asking you to approve that. Some time ago, we conducted.
No, this is regarding the voluntary treatment residences for
Okay.
chemical dependency, sorry.
I thought this one was on consent. All right. So it's item 12, I see. DER 2018, number 13, voluntary treatment residences for chemical dependency. As you recall, a couple months ago, there was a case before you, and as a result of all the discussion that took place with that, you asked staff to conduct some research regarding the voluntary treatment residences. And my colleague Dave Yearout conducted that research for us, and he went to various cities within Kansas, Oklahoma, as well as Omaha. And the result of that was that virtually everyone had very similar, if not almost the same, type of policies that we currently have in our code. A few of them did have some, maybe they expanded the definition a little bit, but essentially the result was the same. And so all of that also matched the interpretation that our Director Miller provided to you when he did the interpretation of our code regarding that case some time back. So the result of the research, the recommendation that's made because of it is that we maintain the language that we currently have in our code, that at this time it's not really necessary to amend it. However, going forward in the future, should we have an opportunity to do zoning code amendments, maybe several of them, that we certainly could incorporate some of the language, especially from Topeka. So what you have in your memo is you have the proposed language, should we do that sometime in the future. And if you go down to about line 5 of that, that's where the language starts from Topeka, and then it kind of wraps back up with what we had. I provided you a comparison there too with the group residence language that we currently have. So it is up to you whether you want us to go forward and maybe do an amendment to our code, or should we just hold off and wait until we have several things coming forward to you in terms of amendments to the code.
Questions for Mary? Mr. Foster.
I'm looking at the last paragraph here in the report, and I'm not following the distinction on how you can simply administratively change a definition and not consider it an amendment to the UZC. I'm just not following that at all.
Let me help you there, Mr. We're not proposing to change the language today. What we're proposing is that you stick with the interpretation that the Board of Zoning Appeals approved, that the zoning administrator provided, but in the future, if you want us to deal with that, at some point in the future, when we have other zoning code amendments, we could incorporate the language that's provided here as part of other amendments. We're not wanting to change the amendment today. Change the definition today. We wanted to rely on the BZA's interpretation and opinion, and then at some point in the future, change it if we need to.
That clarifies it. Thank you.
Other questions?
I think it clarifies it, but if it's something we ought to do, we ought to do it. If we don't need to do it, why do it? If it's something that needs to be changed, if we're that concerned about it, why would we defer it?
I don't think it needs to be changed to be consistent. It's just that if, instead of relying upon the interpretation and the BZA opinion, we could incorporate it into the zoning code, but because it takes extra effort and public notice and all that stuff to amend the zoning code, we thought it would be easier to work it in when there are other amendments coming, probably from the infill committee or other activities that are going on that are going to require zoning amendments at that point.
You don't feel there's an urgency?
No.
Another thing to factor in is if you do open up amendments to the zoning code, then anybody can come and ask for amendments that might or might not be related to what you're amending.
Thank you.
Sounds like Topeka.
Other questions? So,
What's the motion here?
well, yeah, what is the motion, Dale?
If you are satisfied with leaving things as they are, there is no motion that's necessary. We were asked to bring it back after we studied it, and this is our findings, and so there's no action required unless you feel there's a requirement.
Move we read, even file, that's what I was trying to say, thank you.
Second.
I have motion by Mr. Joe Johnson to receive and file, and a second by Mr. Green, and a question by Mr. Richardson.
I just want to remind everyone, the reason this came up was we had a case, and there was someone who was objecting, I think, and so I think Dale did a good job of pointing out how this was different than to what they were objecting, and they did a good job, and I think we handled it just fine, which is a reason I don't think it has an urgency at this point, so.
Mr. Blick.
I just wanted to build off that too. We appreciate it, and then also the information at advanced planning too that you gave us and some more detailed on it. So thank you again for all of your hard work.
Okay, I have a motion and second to receive and file. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 11-0.
310.
10-0.
Oh,
Mr. Daly.
Nobody gets it.
Oh, I lost another one?
He's here, he just wasn't
Oh, he
at
wasn't
present at mowing.
Where is my chair? My vice chair is supposed to be keeping me in line over here. I have to rely heavily on Dale today. All right, moving on to agenda item number 13.
Stephen Banks with the Metropolitan Area Planning Department Advanced Plans Division. This update or this presentation is the Community Investments Plan 2018 Monitoring Report. According to Kansas statute, a review of the comprehensive plan is to be done each year, and to that end, as part of the implementation of the Community Investments Plan, a process was set up to review certain parameters and indices as a means to measure progress of the plan and look for areas of the plan that may need updating. The monitoring report measures demographic changes, development activity, city and county capital improvement program projects, and national citizen survey results in light of the plan's objectives. At this point, I'm going to hit some of the highlights of the report and then open it up for questions. The graph at the top of page 5 shows population growth for Wichita, Sedgwick County, and the established central area, which has been growing at a pace slightly below our historic averages of approximately 0.8% per year, with the exception of the ECA. However, the dashed lines show the target set forth in the Community Investments Plan of a growth rate of 1.25% per year, a goal that was put into the comprehensive plan with the idea that we need to aim higher to grow more. We are falling short of those targets with the exception of the ECA. Downtown development and other projects have resulted in population growth exceeding the target levels until 2016. The U.S. Census numbers do show Wichita and the ECA having population declines for 2016. However, these decreases do fall within the margin of error for the census data, and there may be factors that are keeping people from responding to the census due to the current political climate. The main takeaway on this issue is that these projections do not need to be revisited as we look to updating the comprehensive plan at this time. I would recommend waiting until after we get 2020 census numbers at this point. The graph for new housing units, also on the same page, shows similar results to the population growth, with targets for Wichita and Sedgwick County not being realized. While new housing unit creation parallels population growth to some degree, there are other factors affecting this, such as fewer households with children, more people staying single longer, and growth of senior households as baby boomers age and retire. This will create pressure for more units to be built, as well as a desire for different housing choices. Our model for projecting new housing units will change as we get more data and see shifts in housing choices and household size over time. At the top of page 6, commercial development has continued a strong increase in activity since the recession hit Wichita. The very high numbers in 2014 and 15 were the result of the Eisenhower Airport construction. But 2016 and 2017 numbers do show a strong positive increase. 2017 saw a 14% increase over the 5-year average for Sedgwick County. Growth in employment has been very slow, with the lack of growth in high-tech industries like aviation having an impact on overall employment growth for the region. Consolidation in the aircraft sector, along with increased use of robotics and aircraft manufacturing, have contributed to this. However, long-range forecasts for the industry are looking good. On the next 3 pages, you have several small graphs that highlight some of the data given in the spreadsheet pages that follow. A few of the National Citizen Survey results are highlighted on page 7. Overall scores for Wichita are trending positive in this survey. In other words, citizen surveys, this is a nationally validated survey that takes place in many cities by the International City Managers Association, but they're showing positive increase in scores by Wichitans in comparison to other cities. Page 8 shows how capital improvement program projects are matching up with the community investment plan priorities. Transportation projects are the highest amount of dollars invested in infrastructure, with a large amount still going in Category 3 projects. Current indications seem to expect that this will change as the East Kellogg project finishes up, and the capital improvement program will follow even more into line with the goal priorities of the community investments plan. Sorry I didn't keep these going for you on the screen, but you do have the printout in front of you. With that, I'll entertain any questions. The purpose, of course, of this is as part of the annual review. You can accept this report and basically make a motion that the plan is in compliance, and we do not need to do any updates at this time.
Mr. Joe Johnson.
From your past experience, you would say we're doing pretty well?
Well, we're still underperforming in terms of the historic growth rate. We've come out of the recession slower than other communities. Of course, it arrived here later. We actually saw in 2010 an increase in population because this was one of the few areas in the country that were hiring people at that point of the recession. But it's been harder for us coming out of it.
Other questions from the commission? Mr. Foster.
You made the connection here between the CIP and the plan.
Yeah.
And I just want to follow up. I think all those that were involved in developing the comprehensive plan were, that was one of the findings, is that there should be a connection between the CIP and the investments plan. And I recall, whenever we've gotten that brought before us, complimenting them on that. So my question there is, will this particular report you've done go on to the governing body for their information?
I didn't catch the last part of your question.
Will this go on to the governing body for their information as part of that effort to keep a connection between the CIP and the plan information?
Yeah, I would think we would forward this to the council and the planning commission as part of county commission, yes, county commission.
And one other final question is, looking at the fine print on the surveys, it references that for here in the city, 1,400 were randomly selected and sent out, and that you might get 300 back. And so the question there is, if you're only getting 300 back, and we're over 300,000 population, are you relying on the historical trend of going clear back to like 2006 and coming forward, watching that trend versus just relying on only 300 responses?
Well, I'm not exactly sure how they compile that, but that is considered statistically valid in terms of survey for the number of responses, but also the percentage of responses.
And to answer your question, yes, we are focusing on the trends of the survey results.
Thank you.
Mr. Green?
I'd like to move that we take the recommended action, which is to accept the plan and with no amendments, extensions, or additions necessary.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Green and a second by Mr. Blick. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries 10-0.
I'm back, so it's 11.
Oh,
He's back.
you guys have just got to stop. With that, we are adjourned.